Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening to the NTC podcast. Aaron Washington coming back to you guys on the mic, joined by Aaron Perlstein, another member of the NTC team. We are pretty excited right now because there is a team that I think many did not expect to be dominating at this point the way they have down south. That's making some noise that we're going to touch on here in just a moment. But Aaron, hope you're doing well, man. Thanks for jumping on for
Yep.
another pod. Ready to get
Anytime.
it going, man. Just keep it going.
Absolutely.
By the way, how'd the finals treat you? I know you were busy last week, and hope you made it
Oh
out
yeah.
unscathed.
I wouldn't say unscathed, but we made it out.
That's good. That's good. At least you're in one piece, man. That's all that
Yeah,
matters.
exactly.
Cool. And then we're also going to cover a few trade targets here on this podcast. So as of today, I mean, it's December 12th, and trade season is going to really get kicked up here in the next few days. So me and Aaron are going to discuss that as well here in just a few minutes. But before we get started with the content, guys, just want to shout out Bet99 Sportsbook. They are the official betting partner of No Trade Clause. They have joined up with us, and we just want to make sure you're aware of their website, what they have going on. So, I mean, it's a great time to get into the betting scene as we're in the heart of the NBA season. And there's so much you can get involved with. I mean, Christmas Day games are coming up. Believe it or not, the All-Star break is not too far away, which is wild to think about. So if you guys want to get involved with them, be sure to check out bet99.com, and you can get jump started right there on the website. Regardless of what you're trying to do in betting, they're going to get you guys hooked up. So definitely be sure to check out the website as soon as possible. So now that we are ready to go, Aaron, I think it's time to get into a little bit of Pelicans action.
Absolutely.
The Pels have been making some noise. They've been killing it. And this is where we're going to start things off. And as I told you before we came on, I was super excited to get into this team because, I mean, they kind of stuck up on me, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I was going through the standings. I was looking at the teams, and I knew that they were number one in the Western Conference. So I looked at the record, 18-8, like that's solid. They've done some great work. They just beat the Suns yesterday in overtime, 129 to 124. Twice. Yep. So 2 straight wins against the Suns. They're making a statement. 8-2 in their last 10 games. They won 7 games in a row, which is pretty impressive. So that much is, pretty standard. It's, stuff you can look at a glance and really get a feel for it. Then I started to dive deeper into the numbers, and I was even more impressed. So StatMuse on Twitter put this out, I think today, but they are top 5 in offense and defense as of today, 25 plus games through. So as of today, they're 5th in offense, 3rd in defense. The numbers come from cleaning the glass. And as we know, using a historical reference point, teams that are in the top 10, even top 10 or top 5 in both stats, they're real contenders. Yep. You go back and look at teams that have won the championship. You look at the Celtics from last year, teams like that caliber that are usually at the top of the conference, the Suns the past couple of years. I mean, those are the caliber of teams that the Pelicans are hanging with right now. So that's really incredible. And what's also impressive, and we also discussed this, is the fact that they're doing this without 2 of their key rotation pieces. So as of today, I mean, Brandon Ingram, I think, is close to return, is what I've heard. They're about to embark on a road trip, and he's supposed to be coming back soon. And then they also have, not on Herb, Herb Jones has not played in several games. I think it's been 5 straight games he's missed. So when you throw that into the equation, it's like, man, these guys are legit. They're doing some serious damage in the West. So I have more numbers. I have more stats I'm going to put out there. But before I do, I wanted to get your side of things. And because I want to know exactly what you're thinking as to why they've been so successful and possibly like why they're kind of flying under the radar. I mean, they got Zion, they got CJ McCollum, they got Ingram. Why is it that this team has kind of snuck up on us a little bit, even though their numbers are so elite so far?
I mean, I think it's because they're young. I think they got a lot of guys that are so, like, to the normal NBA community, pretty unproven. We all love Jose Alvarado, and he's been a great story. Georgia Tech exiting. But no one was like, wait, this guy is like an upper tier backup point guard. This guy is coming in and putting up 15 points per game and spacing the floor and finishing the games for these guys and shutting down the other point guard. I mean, people didn't look at it and say, wait, like, they have something there. Or Najee Marshall, someone who couldn't make a roster, is now playing 30 plus minutes for them and is playing great defense, and has a focal point on this team. Or Larry Nance coming in and giving good minutes. I think it's just kind of it crept up on people not watching them because of just how efficient they've been and how just they've just worked as a team, and it's beautiful to watch. I was there Friday for the first Suns game. That was it was awesome to be there. A great atmosphere. I mean, New Orleans is really getting behind them, and it just looks like it all starts on the defensive end for me. It looks like from a top down, their coaches and to the 15th man, they're just all in and concentrated on the defensive end. I mean, they were playing some high level schemes against the Suns. They were blitzing Booker off a pick and roll and forcing him to make the bounce pass to Ayton, and then Ayton would obviously turn to the other side, and they would leave that open because the other side had McCall Bridges, and then compared to the other side where there was Damon Lee or Chris Paul, and they were allowing McCall Bridges to shoot the three. They're a very high analytical, high efficient team that clearly sticks to the numbers, understands what the process is, what they want to do defensively. And it worked out. You let the low volume shooters shoot. You rebound the ball. If it gets into the paint, you collapse and help each other out. And I think it all starts there. I mean, it's interesting because they're actually third to last in threes, like percentage taken of their shots. They're a real just pass the ball until we get a good look. Let Zion take someone one-on-one. I saw Sports Info Solutions, their new advantage creation stat. He's leading the league at 32% of his possessions per 100 possessions. He gets an advantage created, which is remarkable. And he scores with so much ease that it just makes everyone's job so much easier. And they're not scared of anyone. They're not back down. They're young, but they got a lot of dogs on that team, and that's all you need to succeed. And if everyone's bought in, they could make a splash in the playoffs as well.
Big time. Like, everyone's buying in to such a crazy level. And like you said, I mean, they're not dominating from the 3-point line. And that's kind of messes with the way we think today in the NBA, because a lot of times you look at the numbers, especially when it comes to this analytical movement, it's the teams that take the most threes and make the most threes are the ones that have the most success. For the most part, that's true. But with the Pelicans, it's a little bit different. And this kind of backs up some of the other numbers I found. And it comes down to where they're making their money. I mean, you mentioned Zion. He makes so much, he creates so much of a advantage in the paint. And I think that's where that advantage creation stat comes from. It's like, Absolutely. If he gets the ball even remotely close to the paint, I mean, heck, if he's even outside the paint, outside the arc, he just has such a great first step. He has great burst, great strength, great body control once he's in the air, that it doesn't matter who you put on him. Either he's going to be too quick for them or he's going to be too strong for them if you put a smaller guy on him, and he's just going to dominate. So when it comes to Zion's on-off numbers, they're really incredible. And they're actually the second best on-off numbers on the team.
Wow.
Do you want to take a guess at who number one is on the team in on-off numbers right now?
Got to be Jose. No?
You're correct. You're correct.
Wow. I mean, it's just what he brings to the team right now.
He's insane. He's 15.8, plus 15.8 on-off efficiency differential. That's the highest on the team in 524 minutes. Zion's is plus 11 efficiency differential. And when it comes to the free throw situation, the team generates plus 4.2 free throws per 100 field goal attempts. And that's a pretty impressive stat for just one guy. And 70% of his shots are coming at the rim right now, which is a career high for him. That speaks to the way that his shot distribution is trending in the right direction. With Zion, like, you don't want him taking a bunch of jumpers. He
Yeah,
will attempt some, which is great. It's okay to kind of keep the defense guessing a little bit. But
right.
this season, I mean, he's really just putting his head down and saying, like, when I get to the rim, 9 times out of 10, you guys got to foul me or I'm scoring. Like, it's just,
Yeah. I just backpedaling on that. Like it looks like it just comes so easy. It's slow. The game is slowing down for him.
oh, yeah.
Just like you're saying. Yeah, I mean, it just looks like when he dissects the situation a lot faster now. And I mean, he's finishing games 12 of 15, 13 of 18, or 14 of 16, and that's just like people are not talking about those numbers. Not like to be someone like him, to be sort of one dimensional, where he can shoot it, but he probably isn't going to. To have that efficiency is crazy.
It's really insane. And dude, we got to remember Zion has only played just over 100 games in his career so far.
Yep.
This is crazy. I mean, the dude is only 22 years old. He has played. This is his third season playing. It's his fourth season in the league, but he missed all of last season with that foot injury. So essentially, he's only in his third year. He's only played 21 games up to this point this year. He played 61 2 years ago, and then he only played 24 games back in his age 19 season, which was his rookie season. So we have to kind of keep in mind like where he is in his development cycle. He hasn't even hit his prime yet. Uh,
Not at all. Yeah,
he's 22 years old, third year playing, and he's already made an all-star team. So I think a lot of people, myself included, when we looked at the ceiling of this team, we told ourselves like if Zion is Zion and he's 100%, when you blend in the entire roster, the bench, those other guys that we've touched on a little bit, Alvarado, Trey Murphy, Herb, like the ceiling is crazy high for this team. I think they've hit, it's weird to say because they've been so banged up, but they've almost hit a best case scenario so far through 26 games when it comes
absolutely.
to how great they can be and how good Zion can be for them. So I love what they have going for them. And I think if Ingram can come back in and kind of blended with Zion, I'm curious to see like how Ingram and Zion kind of play off of each other once he comes back. I mean, there's not much this team can do. They have a little bit of everything. It's a very balanced
Absolutely.
roster, which I love.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that, I think we can go back and forth on just how perfect their schemes and efficiency is all over the court and everything, and how they're using analytics to their advantage and everything. But outside of that, even just the culture of the team, like contrary to popular belief, I loved that 360 at the end. And Zion's comments as well. I think saying this team just like eliminated my brothers from the playoffs. Like, and I have an open lane, and I can get the crowd riled up that was behind me all game that fueled us. Like, okay, like I've never really been a fan of the whole unspoken rule and this that.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think it's saying like we're here, like stop taking us for granted. So, and like even them getting upset, why did Chris Paul shoot it? Like it's
Yeah,
just
yeah, there's that
it's
too. Yeah,
those things that are so inconsistent. But outside
fact.
of that, it's just like uh, I love just not backing down to anyone. They're kind of that younger brother right now that's young and still, but giving everyone fits and just kind of reminding everyone like, listen, like everyone could tell me I'm fat and forget about me, but we're here, and I'm a superstar, and watch out for the Pelicans.
That was a statement game.
Yeah,
110% statement game. I love the vibes. And like it's everybody. Like we said this multiple times already, but it's a collective.
yeah,
And we can talk all we want about Zion and Brandon and CJ, and even CJ's has some ups and downs. So I mean, he hasn't been like as good as he was last season to this point.
right.
But look down the entire roster. We already talked about Alvarado and his on-off numbers. Their starting fives have been very potent. So when you kind of expand to the full five that are starting games, when you have CJ out there with Brandon when he was healthy, Herb, Zion, and Valanciunas, I mean they're plus 10.1 per 100 possessions,
Yeah,
with 233 possessions. And then if you sub out Brandon Ingram for Dyson Daniels, who's been getting more run with Ingram out,
yeah.
it's still plus 7.7 per 100 possessions, and they have 103 possessions played. So And then you go and look at the bench numbers, and I wanted to get this context as well because I wanted to know how good their bench has been relative to the rest of the league. And what I found was that they're second in the league in bench net rating, so they're plus 4.2. They're sixth in minutes played off the bench, which is very high, very impressive. They're fifth in assist percentage. So these guys are not afraid to share the ball, get everybody involved when the bench lineups are in the game. And then if you just want to look at points per game, which most people are going to go straight to points per game, how many points is that bench generating relative to everybody else? So they're ninth. So they're not, top 3, top 5, but I mean, they're still top 10. And it's at 37.2 bench points per game. And that comes from StatMuse. So first takeaway is, I mean, if you guys are looking for detailed stats, be sure to go to StatMuse because I found some cool numbers from them. And I love their tweet. I'm sure you've seen them when they have that. They had that tweet, and then they have like the shot of the player that like animated headshot or whatever. And then they'll throw in like a random tweet, and it'll be like, John Morant has made he's made 2 flashy dunks. He's averaging 2 flashy dunks a game or something like that. Like,
and they changed their profile picture too. I love it. Yeah.
Yep. Good vibes over there. So I mean, their bench is crazy good. So I mean, got to give them credit.
Yeah, I mean, sitting at that game, my friend was asking me different about bench units, and I was, coming to this year, I don't think I would put anyone on the Clippers level in just terms of talent, production, and just years of service, basically to who's on that team. They're basically 12-man deep. But he made the claim, and he made it pretty well. I looked at the roster, and I was like, all right, like Pelicans might be close to that. I mean, they really don't, like, once you get the second unit in, I don't know how much they lose in terms of efficiency or productivity. So it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, they don't really lose much at all. A lot of their bench numbers are very positive, even when there is a lineup with a fair amount of bench players in them. Not a huge sample size so far, but I mean, the numbers are very positive. Yeah. And then you just look at, and this is also a testament to how well they've drafted over the past few years. You got to give David Griffin a lot of credit for who they've been able to grab in the draft and where they were drafted. I mean, since they got Zion, I mean, they haven't been drafting super high. I mean, they haven't had top 5 picks or anything, but they go out there and get Herb. They go out there and get Trey Murphy. Trey Murphy showed flashes at Summer League. I mean, he was out there in Summer League killing it, and I think that was a clear indication that he was ready for a bigger role, and he's taking full advantage of it. So, I mean, Dyson Daniels has produced some solid minutes. He's still kind of getting his legs under him, but he's figuring things out. So, I mean, I love their guys. Alvarado, I mean, man, like, what a steal. Came out of nowhere.
Absolutely. He's got that New York blood.
Yep. So I love that for him. So, I mean, only thing that's left now to discover with the Pelicans is how sustainable is this? And I look at some of the teams they played before. They've beaten the Warriors. They've beaten the Grizzlies multiple times. They've beaten the Nuggets, the Suns twice, as we discussed. So quality wins. They've had a somewhat challenging schedule. I don't think they've had the toughest schedule or anything. But, I mean, they played some solid teams. They've dealt with injuries quite well. Their coaching is great. That's another thing. I mean, you talked about their schemes and everything. That comes back to Willie Green and the job he's done. I'm sure you remember last season where they had a horrendous start, and I'm sure he was stressing a little bit, and they're trying to figure things out. And I mean, he just kind of kept that team locked in. He didn't let them look below the rope. They finished last season strong, and then they just picked up where they left off and kept it going for another level. So across the team, and everybody's just carrying their weight, doing what they got to do.
Absolutely. It's awesome to see, and I mean, I think quarter through the season, it's going to be interesting to see just how the longevity of Zion is just, and the consistency just overall. I mean, I assume that they'll start shooting the ball better from 3, and that's just going to accumulate even more wins and more ways to score, and it's an exciting time for the Pelicans for sure.
Oh yeah. So in the meantime, don't miss the Pelicans. If they're on national TV, League Pass, they're a top watch right now, and they're going to get even better, healthy. So I think that's That's a word of wisdom I put out to the fans right now. Don't miss these guys.
Definitely.
So I mean, the Pelicans have everything they need. They're set. Their roster is deep. They have stars, but not everybody can say the same. Most people are looking to make some kind of move to move up in the conference, to kind of change their fortunes around. They've had a rough start to the season.
Yeah.
So that brings us to trade season. As of today, this is December 12th. By the time you're watching this pod, it's probably going to be the 13th or later. But if you guys go to our website and you go to our homepage, I mean, we have important dates listed on our homepage that you need to
Yep.
be aware of when it comes to the season. So as of December 15th, so just a few days away, players that were signed on or before September 15th are not eligible to be traded. So
Yep.
that's essentially the unofficial start of trade season because it allows so many more players to become available to be traded. So that opens the floodgates with possibilities, guys that can get moved around, whatnot. So Aaron and I have accumulated a few names here that we want to go over exactly what they bring to the table, who they might end up with if they do get traded. So first name on my list that we're going to go over here, man, is the infamous Cam Reddish.
Oh yeah.
I watched a video. I want to say it was like 3 years ago. It was when Anthony Edwards and was just coming into the league, and somebody asked him. They said, "Who was your toughest cover when you were in school? The toughest guy you had to guard?" He didn't hesitate. He said, "Cam Reddish. He is the guy that
Yeah.
gave me the most trouble." And there's no denying Cam Reddish has all the talent in the world. When he was in high school, I mean, he was killing people. I mean, we know he went to Duke and he struggled playing next to Zion and RJ Barrett. He came to the league, to the Hawks, and continued to struggle. And it just seems like he's just never ended up in the perfect position to really take off in his career. I've been a Cam Reddish stan for years. Like I've been trying to hold on to my stock in Reddish Island. I didn't want to let go of the rope. I don't know how you feel. I'm starting to get a little bit worried. He's averaging 22 minutes a game now. He's getting plenty of opportunities. He's been up to start a few times, and he's only averaging 8 points a game. His efficiency is definitely up from his prior years, but it just doesn't seem like he's really doing all that much, at least on offense, for what I can tell. And this is a key stretch in his career because he's a restricted free agent next year. He has a $5.9 million expiring deal. So this is his time to shine. This is his time to capitalize. And he's been linked to the Heat, the Lakers. I think they can both use his services. So I'll be interested to see if the Knicks do move on from him. So I know that he's probably in
Absolutely.
conversations right now, but it remains to be seen if the Knicks are going to be able to find a deal that they actually really like for him. So when it comes to
Yeah.
Cam Reddish, do you have any stock left, or are you kind of abandoning hope? Like, where are you right now?
Uh, I think I've always been pro Cam Reddish in terms of talent, and I just think the two places he's been have been both been the wrong situation for him. Especially in Atlanta, that was a deep roster. DeAndre Hunter was still there, Bogdanovich was still there,
Yeah.
Herder was still there, John Collins was playing that three sometimes. It was really hard for Cam to get meaningful minutes, but also to separate himself, especially when you're kind of a three-dimensional scorer, and like that's kind of your calling card,
Mm-hmm.
and you got guys like DeAndre Hunter that provide a lot of value on the other side as well. So that's hard. And then New York, I mean, you're playing for Tom Thibodeau. You're playing for the defensive mastermind of the NBA in the last 5, 6 years. And it's not unpredictable to expect Thibs not to be happy with Cam Reddish on the court and play other guys above him.
Mm-hmm.
And you could have seen that coming in. And I think he needs a fresh start. I think we see a lot of guys that are getting these fresh starts around the league that are excelling at different places, and I think it's definitely advantageous for both sides and beneficial to Cam Reddish's team to get him out of New York. And it's going to be interesting to see what they garner, though. Another guy that we'll probably get to, like Kuzma. I could definitely see a beneficial trade and a swap in there, and maybe a pick involved where Washington gets their pick back from New York. But somewhere like Washington where there's a lot less chaos of MSG, or a contending team like Atlanta, where you're playing with Bradley Beal, you're playing with other guys that are very offensively focused. It can make a lot of sense for Cam, but it's definitely falling hard. You got a lot of young talent coming into the league. We're going to see the new 30 become the new 25, 26-year olds that are going to have to be kind of pushed out of the league. And it's going to be interesting to see if you could, find a mold somewhere, because there's definitely a market, but it's confusing what it is.
It is confusing. And when I think of what Cam brings to the table, I mean, ideally, he would be in a role to where, of course, he's just going to get the opportunity. First off, just get the minutes. He's kind of gotten that in his career. I mean, he's been anywhere from right now, he's at 22 minutes a game all the way up to 26, 27 minutes a game. But also just in an environment, and you touched on this, being in New York, it's like there's not a long leash there in New York with Thibodeau. You play poorly, especially on defense. You're going to see your minutes slashed quite quickly. And for Cam, I think he's one of those real tough rhythm players. And I think I heard somebody mention this. Maybe it was on the JJ Redick pod or something. But there's just certain players they just need time to kind of find that rhythm. You can't just throw them out there here or throw them out there for a few minutes here or there and they figure it out. They just kind of need a runway to kind of get going, get that confidence before they're really on one and they're in a rhythm. It kind of looks like he's one of those players. I mean, if his opportunities are going to be sporadic, he can't really get going. He can't really kind of put it all together. So, I mean, I looked at the Heat, I looked at the Lakers. I looked at the Hornets a little bit as well. Maybe there's some kind of trade that can benefit both squads. The Hornets do have a hole left by Miles Bridges, and I know he plays a different position, but they're looking at a guy Bouknight on that team that hasn't really taken advantage of the opportunity. So, I mean, and Gordon Hayward has never been healthy for them. So, I mean, I don't think it would hurt to have another kind of young guard in there to possibly help. But I'm just trying to think of a team that really kind of needs what he brings to the table. With the Knicks, it's just kind of if I feel like it, I'll throw him out there. If we do, great. If we don't, great. But if he's with a team like the Hornets that just they're going nowhere. So it's hey, let's just play him 30 minutes a game because what do we have to lose? Or with a team like the Lakers or Heat, where it's they have really huge problems at their wing positions. So it's hey, come in, do what you do, generate some offense for us because we really need that part of your game. It's not a luxury, it's a need. So it might give him more of an opportunity. So we'll see what happens on that front, but yeah.
Yeah, I could see the Bulls being involved. I was thinking about it while you were talking about thinking of different trade targets. I mean, the Bulls have a horrendous offense right now, and getting some kind of explosive offense off the bench would be definitely interesting. But, I don't know what that returning offer would be, but, I thought, that would be an interesting situation for sure.
Definitely. So, I mean, it's kind of all up to what the Knicks decide to do. There is a good player in there somewhere. I think we're both still convinced of that. Maybe not as great of a player as maybe we thought coming into the draft, but there's still an avenue for him to be a productive player in this league. It's all about opportunity. That's the biggest part of the equation, really, when it comes down to it. Unless you're a superstar, you just got to find the right spot to be successful.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, Cam Reddish was he's an ex-Hawks player, and Cam just couldn't find his role in Atlanta. How about John Collins? He's it kind of looks like he's going down the same path where it's it just doesn't seem like it's kind of clicking between him and the rest of the team. It's kind of wild to think about, but John Collins right now, and should be his prime. I mean, he's entering this mid-20s. He only has a 14% usage rate right now, which is by far the lowest of his career. He's also shooting 22% from three, also the lowest of his career. going back to cleaning the glass, I think the next lowest percentage I saw from him was like 33, 32, 33. So, I mean, this is 10 percentage points lower than even his previous low in his career. So, I think part of that is just because he's not really involved in the offense. He's just getting very sporadic looks. Um, and this is a ripple effect that comes from bringing on a guy like, a guy with that played with Trae Young and Murray.
Hmm.
They generate so much of the offense, and Capella's still involved, and Bogdanovich is involved. John Collins is just kind of the odd man out right now. So it's
Yeah,
unfortunate, but I think that on the right team, he can go back to being a 2010 guy with 2 threes a game, with 40% shooting. It's just going to come down to just being in the right situation. So, in your mind, like, what is that ideal situation for him? I mean, it's got to be probably a contender or a playoff team. Like, who could use a guy like that?
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's definitely interesting because clearly the Hawks haven't been like excited about the offers given because he's been in the trade market news for 2 years now, and there was an extension like in between that.
Yeah.
Clearly, like there has been conversations about him, and the Hawks have just not been interested in any offers. So maybe they were overstating the market that's there, and especially now with the new contract, it's going to make it even more confusing. But I could see, it's just a contender somewhere, that makes, that could help us, like that needs a stretch force help, that has a defensive minded guy behind him. But on top of that, just he's obviously a great rim roller. He's a great guy that is having the pick and roll situation. He's not an amazing defender, but can definitely help out perimeter, on the perimeter. And I'm trying to think of different guys. I mean, maybe Denver, maybe somewhere like that, where next to Jokic makes some sense. But it's definitely going to be interesting, like who kind of unloads the bag because who unloads the bag, or do the Hawks just lower the asking price? Because clearly one is way too unpredictable right now.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think it's a situation where John Collins established a very high value due to his play from the previous 3 seasons. And
Right.
you go back and look at his numbers, and you're like, I mean, this is like a borderline all star player in the Eastern Conference. He was dropping double doubles all over the place with 3 point shooting. I mean, that's a very, very valuable player in today's league. You go back just last season, for instance. I mean, he was at 16 and almost 8 boards a game, and he was shooting 36% on 3 pointers. So, I mean, across the board, he was doing some great things for him. So, when it comes to John Collins and his impact, and you go back and look at his numbers, I mean, he had a season a few years ago where he was at 40%. Now, this is before they brought in Bogdanovich and guys like Murray, but I mean, he was over 20 point per game scorer, 40% from the three, and he was a 2010 guy. He was a 2010
Yep.
guy with a block and a half per game. So
Yep.
they look at that. The Hawks are telling themselves, like, I mean, this is a high quality, borderline all star player. So in return, we want, a high quality starter, maybe even another borderline all star player. I think
Right.
teams are looking at that. And what's also challenging now is like, it's not like he's on his rookie contract anymore. You
Right.
have to
Exactly.
adequately match that salary. He's at, due to his extension, which you mentioned, he's at 101 million left over 4 seasons with the player option in year 4. So that's a lot of guaranteed money still left on his contract. Now his play's diminished, so it's like maybe people are saying, okay, I would have offered this. Now I'm a little bit lower, and
Right.
there's some kind of disconnect between the asking price. So we'll see
Yeah.
what generates, but I mean, I would love to see him in a situation where he gets more touches because he's a fantastic player. It's just like, hey,
Right. Right.
get him involved again.
Yeah, I think, but I do think it came from the age where, thankfully, we're kind of out of it. But that age where those few years where the league was paying Julius Randle and John Collins a lot of money on these inflated stats that were kind of perpetrated by that 3 pointer, and now they've regressed back to the mean, and those salaries didn't really account for mean regression, and now you're left with these two guys that are not 40% 3-point shooters like that 2 seasons showed. And now you're left with paying these guys like they're 40% 3-point shooters, and
Mm-hmm.
you kind of lucked out in the trade market now. So
Right.
it's not really happening anymore. Is interesting, but those two were definitely standouts for me in terms of just not really accounting for, okay, well, maybe this guy isn't that good of a shooter.
Yep. And I was like, I selfishly, just the fan in me wants him to get back to where he was John the Baptist. He would
Yeah,
just
yeah,
dunk all over these guys, and that
yeah,
excitement
everywhere.
level is kind of faded a little bit. So hopefully we can
Absolutely.
get that back here soon. So, I mean, there's several teams that could be interested. I had the Heat down, I had the Kings down, and I also had
Yeah,
the Suns down as a team that might be interested in his
that's
services,
true.
which is interesting because the next player I thought of on this list is in Phoenix, and he hasn't played a game yet this season. Jae Crowder has
Right.
been in several trade rumors for months because ever since he said that, like, I'm not going to play this season for the Suns, automatically it's like, okay, how do we get him out of here? Who can we bring back in exchange for his services? I mean, I would be thrilled to see a front line, and I don't know if this would work from the Suns' perspective, but a front line of Collins and Aiton would be pretty crazy. And
Yeah,
if that's not possible, even like if we were to go to Sacramento with the way they're kind of building
yeah,
that team, when he's if he's paired with Sabonis and Fox has another guy that can roll and pop, like that would be crazy. So I mean,
yeah.
just brainstorm a little bit. It'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, I
But
mean, but on the Andre Crowder, I could, Sacramento's an interesting one as well. I think Sacramento's a really interesting just buyer in the market right now. It's
yep.
they got a young team, they're winning, and okay, like, can we bring in a veteran guy and just continue this winning? And Jae Crowder, John Collins, they all make sense. It depends what they have to give up, obviously. I right now I believe they're tied up until 2028 in terms of picks because of the Kevin Huerter trade with Atlanta. So
Mm-hmm.
but you got a guy like Davion Mitchell who's playing, maybe 5 to 10 minutes a game. Clearly, they're not really in the eyes of developing him and kind of just trying to win. So if that could bring back something like that, that would be really, really exciting for them. And then, yeah, just Drake Crowder in general. I mean, the 32-year-old, what does he bring to the table? He's a gritty guy that plays great defense. He's clearly a great teammate as well. And I think there's going to be a lot of teams in the market for that. We talk about these winners and the Pelicans and the Celtics and and if it gets to a point where his market is so much lower than what it was coming into the season, I don't see a reason why those teams shouldn't take a to try and get him, try and get him to bring him in. And he's clearly a guy that can play any kind of minutes. And I think he definitely should go to a contending team that he can kind of help and attribute to a little bit.
Yep, absolutely. And he's played, like you said, with the minutes. I mean, he can handle upwards of 30 minutes a game. That's what he played with the Suns last season, which was about 28 a game. And there's several teams that I'm sure are calling about Jae Crowder to inquire about what they're asking for him and everything. But in my mind, there's one team that needs him more than anybody else. Like, it's not even close. Miami has to find a way to get this guy back.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, their situation is dire, like just
yeah,
really just not in a good place. I love Caleb Martin. He's been great this season. He does great things. He's not a four. Like
yeah,
I'm just really against that. The dude's like 6'5". He has a thinner build. Like he's just not built to be a modern four. Even in this age of spacing. And the other thing is, like, you want your four, if they're not going to be a bruising four, you want them to be a pretty
yeah.
nice sharpshooting four, like John Collins, like he used to be in Atlanta. But
Right.
he has flashes, but he's not consistently hitting threes. I mean, if you go back and look at Heat games, opponents are routinely just backing off of him and daring him to shoot, which I think is a part of the reason why their offense has been so bad. Kirk Goldsberry put on his he did his little graph where he has like
Right. Right.
the offense going on the x-axis and the defense on the
And the defense.
y-axis,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
can see the Heat just all the way over to the left. Past 10 games, their offense is 28th in the last 10 games, And
Yeah.
I just keep saying to myself, look, they had a Jae Crowder back there where he can kind of be like a kind of a sort of PJ Tucker like they had last year, where he can pick up some of those bigger players. He can also space the floor a little bit, shoot mid 30s from three, so defenses would pretend to respect him from there. Just something to kind of help jumpstart that offense and also the defense. He fits the
Yeah.
culture great. Last time he was on the team, they made the finals. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
So,
it's true. It's true. And,
so
the Heat are such an interesting development because I've learned to never just count them out in any way, shape, or form. When you got Spoelstra, when you got Pat Riley, like they find a way to win regardless of who's on that court.
Spo
Obviously,
knows,
that
man. Spo
yeah,
knows.
they're struggling offensively, but I'm never gonna count them out. Obviously, it's been tough, with Lowry now not being able to be a consistent player, and Duncan Robinson getting DNPs, even though his contract. And uh, I could definitely see them being a buyer in this market and kind of saying, we got these guys, and common knowledge would say, or the common NBA fan would say, all right, blow it up, which is such a misconception. And it's not like you can just blow up anything you want. But so I could definitely see them being a buyer and any of these guys, absolutely.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, a lot of contenders can use Jae Crowder. I mean, he brings so much to the table. He's a great connector piece. And while we're on that topic, why don't we go ahead and hit one more player that I think a lot of contenders should be at least calling about, kind of seeing where his value stands today. But Evan Fournier of the Knicks, I don't know why it feels like Fournier's been in the league for like 13 years or something. Like it feels like this guy has been around forever. But as we transition to Fournier and look at the situation, he's been with the Knicks a couple of years now. I mean, he's age 30, so I mean, he's still kind of in the prime of his career. Still has pretty solid marks. I mean, you go back and look at the last few years of his career. This season is down, but before that, he was routinely in the upper 30s to about 40 for the past couple of seasons, going back to his time in
Yep.
Orlando. So you look at him, he's a reliable shooter. He is a pretty good secondary playmaker. He can create his own shot at a decent level. So, and you look at Fournier and it's like, hey, let's make some calls. But I
Yeah.
think one of the problems with that equation is the fact that, I mean, he's got 3 years left on his contract. The third year is a player option. So you're looking at about 18 to 19 million, which I mean, it isn't a crazy amount of money. It's we just talked about John Collins. He was in the mid 20s. So not an extremely crazy amount of money in this NBA, but I think it's just about finding the right role for him. And I went through all the contenders. I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, well, Brooklyn doesn't really need him, and I go and look at the Bucks. And I'm like, the Bucks' financial situation probably doesn't make that possible. And then I go over to maybe Philly, and I'm like, I don't know if Philly would really want him. And I mean, I went back and forth, and eventually I landed on we could come back to this team, but the Suns. And,
Yeah.
looking at the Suns situation, and their bench is lacking. They have Damian Lee. I mean, you saw these guys. You were at the game the other day. Damian
Right.
Lee, Landry Shamet,
Yep.
uh, Bismack Biyombo, Dario
Torrey
Saric.
Craig. Yep.
Yeah, Torrey Craig. So, I mean, the bench is kind of meh. They can use a little bit of injection of life on that end. They can get a Landry Shamet 2.0 if they go after Fournier. So there's something I thought about. I mean, looking at their contracts, I mean, they would have to pair in probably like a Torrey Craig along with another player, at least two players to kind of make the money work. But I
Yeah.
mean, if you're looking for a little bit of a jolt, you could do worse. So
Yeah, and another team that came to my head was the Dallas Mavericks. Like Luka's doing everything, and you need some kind of offensive help there. And I'm pretty sure. So he is guaranteed for this year and next year, and then there's actually a team option, I believe, in 2024.
oh,
So
team option.
uh,
Yeah, that's what I wanted to
yeah,
say.
yeah, yeah. So it's a pretty low risk deal. I know the 17 million is a lot, but definitely not a lot as much in the context of this NBA. And he's
Yeah.
still a reliable scorer. And Luka clearly needs help offensively. And that was the first team that came to mind for me. And just getting a guy that can space the floor. You got Dorian Finney-Smith, Josh Green, all these guys that are just not pushing the needle enough to help Luka finish games out. And Fournier, I feel like, has that veteran appeal, and I think it's a match that makes a lot of sense. It's going to be who they can give up to match that salary. I really feel like they're going to have it's definitely going to have to be a multi player deal coming from both sides to make this work. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see. I could see them pairing Cam Reddish and Fournier together to figure something out. We're definitely going to see.
That's definitely a deal that's worth thinking about. If I'm on the one side, but I like that you brought up the Mavs because their situation is dire too. I mean, you look at the standings, and you're like, well, why is it dire? I mean, they have a pretty good record. Luka's amazing, but there's one number we have to take into account when we're looking at Luka's dominance: 42.5. That is his usage rate right now.
Yeah,
and it's been 42. This is the second season in a row. It's been 42, and he's playing almost 37 minutes a game. I know he's pretty young still. I mean, he's 23 years old. He doesn't turn 24 until next year. But I worry because I look at those Rockets teams with Harden playing all those minutes and having such a high usage. You're not going to win a title that way. Like when one player does so much for your team and nobody else can really kind of step up. And, I want to try something out because I haven't really dove into the on-off numbers for the Mavs with Luka. But now that I have, I'm pretty amazed. I'm pretty amazed. Yeah. So I'm on Clean the Glass, our favorite site, and
Absolutely.
The efficiency differential for Luka on off is 13.8, which is in the 94th percentile of all players.
Sounds about right.
Yep. So
I mean,
is 99th percentile, so plus 15.1 when he's in the game. They give up a little bit more when he's in the game defensively, but I mean, he's just such a difference maker offensively. It doesn't even matter.
So. Yeah, and then even going back to that SIS hoops stat, the leader in like on-ball opportunities per 100 possessions, so not the percentage that they actually create an advantage, the ability that they had an on-ball opportunity per 100 possessions, Luka's has 110, which is more than one possession. And it's clearly he's the plan A, plan B, and plan C for this team.
He's everything.
So definitely something to figure out, especially when, they definitely got to be a buyer in this market.
One more number for you, man, here as we wrap this up. Expected wins. So how many games would a team win in an 82-game season with this efficiency differential? So they have expected wins, they have negative wins. So if they would win less games with them or without them, more games. So first season was -5. Second season was +5. Third season was +4. Last year was -2, which is interesting. But I mean, they had Brunson last year, and they had, I think, a little bit more production from other guys. This year is +33 so far.
Wow.
20-some games. Unbelievable, man. +33 expected wins. So, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say, I mean, actually, I don't know. Maybe it would be like, maybe they would go from 58 to, I don't know if they would go to 25 wins, but I mean, it would be a substantial. I mean, they got destroyed by the Bulls the other day without him. So, I mean, they don't know what to do without this guy. He's everything.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And they got to figure that out for sure, because that's a great way to push your superstar out the door when his contract's up. So
either out the door or off the court, one of the two.
Yeah, seriously, especially these days.
Yep. So we'll keep an eye on that, and hopefully the Mavs can make a deal to take some load off him a little bit. They have options. I mean, Christian Wood, I think we talked about it recently. Give Christian Wood more opportunities. He's still super efficient. So, I mean, there's ways to take some off Luka's back, but the number one way is going to be via trade. Just get him some help, man. Simple as that.
Yep.
So that's about it, man. This is going to wrap it up for our 51st podcast. Thanks everybody again for tuning in and listening to us kind of ramble on here for almost an hour. We greatly appreciate your time. Aaron, as always, thanks for coming on, man. Great time.
Of course. It's a
Look
great
forward to the
time.
next one.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. And be sure to check out our website. That's going to be notradeclause.com. That's going to have all our resources if you guys are looking for our cap sheets, you're looking for our draft capital information. We can't help you when it comes to the on-off numbers. Clean the glass is still going to be top for that. But if you guys are looking for important
Trade
dates on the
calculator.
calendar, yep, just anything like that, contract situations, we got you covered there. So no trade clause is going to be your destination. And that's going to do it for this one, guys. So enjoy this NBA season here as we approach Christmas Day. That reminds me, man, we got to get into some Christmas Day previews here pretty soon. We got to talk about those games. So that's an idea for maybe next week. We'll get into that one.
I love Christmas NBA.
Yes, sir. Gotta love it. So thanks for joining us, everybody. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll catch you on the next installment of NTC. See you later.